Welcome back, top performer. In this video, we are going to discuss how to best leverage your meetings with your boss and improve your overall communication so you're besties.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Okay, not really besties, but we do want your boss to look forward to your meetings and communication. In fact, it's imperative that you have a reoccurring meeting with your boss and any other key individuals where you're strengthening those relationships. Email and Slack cannot replicate that in-person time, or at least VC. The reason for this is because you can miss out on things like body language and other in-person niceties and rapport building opportunities. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can't do this virtually, but you do not want to have it over Slack and over email. I'm often asked how often a meeting with a boss should be. Well, if it's less than once every 2 weeks, then you may have a problem. And if it's less than once a month, I'd be very concerned. It's really the key method to get clarity from your boss, as well as feedback, whether you're giving your boss feedback or you're receiving feedback, and in general, communicating your success. Early in my career, I worked with an individual who took pride in rarely meeting with his boss, as he saw it as confirmation that they were on the same page and he embraced this autonomy. For me, it was a red flag. And this was confirmed for me later when I found out that that boss found their meeting to be a waste of time, as this individual supposedly rarely came prepared. Unfortunately, the boss never gave that direct feedback until a year later when that individual did not survive a round of layoffs.
That sucks.
In my experience, top performers have more frequent meetings with their boss because they both enjoy the interactions and feel they are productive, since top performer is focused on high value work and the boss invested in you. Ultimately, your work helps make your boss look better. And when you're doing it right and you're providing details in a way that they can quickly boomerang them to their own boss to celebrate, then that's only going to help boost your career. As an example, when I was meeting with my boss, he would frequently be taking notes of the updates I was giving him on successes and putting it into the agenda that he would then take to his meeting with his boss later. These were then items he was able to talk about, which helped him look good, and I like to believe that also he was crediting me on some of these items. I happen to know that he was, but ultimately it's a win-win situation. Now, in addition, there are likely issues specific to your projects, KPIs or tasks that your boss can help you solve. These interactions show your boss all the amazing work you're doing and helps make them look good. Now, the other big benefit is, of course, the rapport building, which goes beyond this. And this is what you get out of starting the meeting with, some personal items, maybe about his or her weekend or your family or their family, sports teams, business articles, or whatever it is. So, as we mentioned before, how often should you meet? Frequency-wise, it may not need to be weekly, but I do think every other week at minimum. When I've had good relationships with my boss, we met weekly as we were excited to discuss the progress and brainstorm new ideas. This often birthed one-off meetings too. Now, I have had some less than stellar boss relationships, and those led me to be okay meeting as little as possible. Of course, I realized that this meant neither of us were getting much from the relationship. You don't want that to be you. I'm not advocating for meetings for the sake of meetings. I hate that. But you do need to make sure that you have a healthy agenda that you are populating in advance of your meetings and that your boss is engaged. I brought most of the topics to my meeting with my boss. I always asked them if they had items they wanted to start with, but they usually just riffed off of my agenda items. Once more, that's okay. The idea, or the key rather, was they were engaged. Now, I'd bring things like key updates to accomplish milestones and achievements related to KPIs or customer success stories. But on top of that, I used something I called weekly wins, which was a collection of successes across my team. This gave me the chance to celebrate my team member's success as well as my own. It also gave my boss talking points each week before he went into a meeting with his own boss. The worst thing you can do is have a regular meeting with your boss and show up expecting them to lead the meeting.
Well, that would be silly.
This is ultimately your time to shine, so shine, baby, shine. And this is so valuable because when it comes time for a promotion or a raise or whatever your ask is, you're going to be remembered as a team member whose results are visible. This will make you the favored employee. Maybe not a bestie, but you know.
Hi, bestie.
Because our meetings were so jammed packed, since I made sure I populated a healthy agenda in advance, we usually sped through the last 5 to 10 items in the last 5 minutes, just to try to give him visibility to the things that I was working on to make sure he was in the loop. Now, more often than not, he would actually push out the start of his next meeting because he determined our meeting was more valuable and impactful for him. Now, dark secret. Okay. Often that meant cutting into the time of one of my team members who didn't proactively structure the meeting for impact, meaning they showed up to their meeting expecting him to be the one bringing the items. While my meetings were generally an hour, 30 minutes may be sufficient for you. So if you do not have a regular meeting with your boss, you need to ask how you become a priority. Are you clear on what she needs? Are you aligned on goals? Could you bring her better information that she could then present to her boss so that she looks good and therefore she can't pass up your meetings? Or could you work on her pet projects so that she can't wait to get together to discuss? The key is to shape your contributions around her priorities. If you're unclear on what her priorities are, ask. It will help you stand out. If your boss already shares her goals publicly, start delivering against them or set aside time to ask questions that will help you better support her. Few do this as they are too busy in their own world. Use that to your advantage to pull ahead of the pack and be the favored team member. Each boss is different, but your boss might prefer getting details before a meeting or perhaps bring the bullet points to the meeting. Learn to speak her language. Meet her in her corner. What I like to do is keep a reoccurring Google Doc agenda open that either party, her or I, could update. If there was a major problem in advance of the meeting, I'd obviously put it on my boss's radar ASAP so that there's no surprise, and then follow up with updates before she had to ask. As I mentioned before, when your boss knows you're on top of it, they usually don't need to be as involved and just need the summary in case their boss asks them. Ultimately, you'll need to determine with your boss what does and doesn't work. You'll know as soon as you start to test things out and see what the response is, or by asking directly. Now, don't be afraid to kill what isn't working. Ask for feedback, and if you find that your meetings are getting cut and not rescheduled, then that's a red flag that you're not bringing value for those meetings, and you need to freshen things up. While I've mainly been focusing on meetings, that's only one portion of building rapport with your boss, and you're going to greatly benefit to understand their communication style. A lot of people struggle with this as they shape the communication how they would like to see it. For example, you may prefer very detailed reports, and therefore you send over detailed daily updates to your boss, but it might be more information than she needs. This especially is true when they're at the executive level. Now, if you see that she rarely reads them, that's probably a sign that she prefers a monthly digest with highlights only. Or maybe another update is you give project updates in Slack to your boss, but maybe they hate Slack and they prefer a quick verbal flyby or drop in a one-page on her desk. It's important that you consider how the recipient or the person consuming this information would be most likely to engage with it, since that's your goal anyway. You didn't put it together for nothing. So to put this another way, think of them as a customer buying it. What product do they want? Some people are more visual, some auditory, some kinesthetic, some need to consume all the reports to make a decision, and some need only skim your recommendations. Shape your communication with the end customer in mind, your boss or whoever you're developing this relationship with.
I mean, that would be nice.
While this might seem like a bit more work up front, it usually saves more time and is more effective, which is ultimately your goal anyway. It's better to do that and have them read it than to be frustrated that you're spending the time and they're not even looking at it. One of my mentors actually used to read reports while on the elliptical machine. This was his way to maximize his time. Well, when I wanted him to read something, I realized that if I just printed and dropped it off on his desk in a decent sized font so that he could read it while on the elliptical was a quick way to be able to get his feedback on something that I put together. Ultimately, this allowed me to access a window in his schedule that other people missed. Remember that the more impact and value you bring your boss, the more she can't resist meeting with you. If you don't already have them, make sure you establish regular meetings with your boss so you can illustrate the value you bring and become her favorite employee.
I'm about to become your favorite person.
Because I see myself as an independent contractor whose services are currently being sold to my boss and company, I see my boss as my core customer. It's important you regularly check in to make sure your core customers' expectations are being exceeded. Let's recap. You want to stand out and captivate your boss. To do this, you want to strive for a meeting at least every other week. You want to lead that meeting with high-value items that are tied to what your boss cares about, their priorities. You want this to feel like the most productive meeting of their week and the most worthwhile. You want to adapt to their style, not yours. This goes for all forms of communication with them and not just the meeting. Let's recap the next actions. If you don't already have one scheduled, you want to schedule your reoccurring meeting with your boss. You'll find some guidelines in the workbook to help you set this up if it doesn't already exist. Second, you want to get feedback from your boss on the effectiveness of your one-on-ones and also understand what else they would like to see from you. And you want to get clarity on their communication preference. This way you can better convey your impact. You'll find guidelines also in the workbook. That's it, you completed another section. I will see you at the top. That's it for this lesson. I hope you found it valuable. If so, this is one of the core lessons from my Career Accelerator system. If you want the full course with the workbook, scripts, and bonus tools, you can get access at careeraccelerator.me. Or you can dive into the next lesson here.